Our family has a secret. A secret that my husband, Bob, and I are keeping from our daughter, Marie. It's not that we want to keep it a secret forever, we plan to tell her when the time is right, but because I am such a coward, I have not been able to reveal it until today. I was afraid that it might shock her or that she might hate us if we told her, so I couldn't bring myself to open my mouth. I wish we could have gone through high school without any problems, but reality was not so kind. Marie realized the secret when she went to donate blood with her friends because she wanted to contribute to society. Yes, through her blood type. The staff at the donation center casually mentioned her blood type, and she realized that something was off. Both my husband and I have type O blood. However, the blood type Marie was told by the staff was type A. When I asked her what was wrong because she looked strange when she came home, Marie seemed to want to say something but didn't say anything right away. When we sat down for dinner with Bob, Marie, with a determined look on her face, asked, "Am I an abandoned child?" Overwhelmed with emotion, I couldn't answer, and Marie, feeling more anxious, started crying and locked herself in her room. My name is Wendy, I am 41 years old. I am a housewife working part-time at a supermarket. My husband, Bob, is a salaried worker, and our daughter, Marie, just turned 17 and is a high school student. We live in an apartment complex aimed at families, and while we can't afford any luxuries, we have been living a relatively fulfilling life. I admit that I am indecisive, but Marie is the complete opposite of me. She is open-minded and reliable, so somehow we balance each other out. For example, most of our conversations at home are initiated by Marie. She talks in detail about small things that happened at school, like being praised in club activities, so we naturally look forward to listening to her stories. And as for Bob, he is incredibly kind and has a deep sense of empathy. He has never gotten angry with his family. Whenever a problem arises, he quickly organizes the situation and finds a solution before anyone gets emotional. In this well-balanced family, 17 years have passed. Today, like every other day, we had breakfast and dinner together, listened to Marie's stories, and enjoyed our close-knit family life. By the way, today's episode from Marie was about walking the neighbor's dog, Mrs. Berger, and seeing a gecko on her way home from school, and she talked about it very cheerfully. However, we have a secret that we are keeping from Marie. The truth is, I planned to tell her when she graduated from middle school, but I was too cowardly to say anything. The longer I put it off, the harder it becomes to say it, so I feel like I have to tell her when she graduates from high school, but I am still scared to say it out loud. I am afraid that our relationship will fall apart or that Marie will despise us, and I can't help but think negatively. I am aware that it is a bad habit of mine. Bob offered to talk to Marie if it was too hard for me, but I told him that I wanted to tell her myself, so he is being supportive. I might be frustrating him by not being able to say it even though I wanted to. But he respects my decision and waits for me without saying anything, and that's the kind of person Bob is. I don't know how many times I have been saved by Bob's personality. The story is about the relationship between Marie's birth and Bob. When I was a college student, I was asked out by two men who went to the same university as me. One was a guy named Tom, who I had been friends with since high school, and the other was Bob, who I became friends with in a college club. I didn't have romantic feelings for either of them, so I struggled a lot, but in the end, I decided to date Tom. When I turned down Bob's confession and told him that I wanted to be friends, not lovers, he kindly accepted it and told me that I could always talk to him if I needed to. I still think that it would have been better if I had chosen Bob at that time. It's pointless to regret it now, but there are times when I can't help but think about it. I think I started dating Tom in the winter of my second year of college, and in the beginning, he took me to aquariums and amusement parks a lot. I wasn't the type to get a lot of attention, but I heard later that Tom was enthusiastic because Bob had also confessed to me at the same time. As a result, I gradually got used to the relationship and started to think about a future with Tom, at least a little. After graduating from college, I started living with Tom, but living together revealed aspects of Tom's character that I hadn't seen before. We both started working at companies as new graduates, but instead of sharing household chores, everything was left to me, and Tom would spend money recklessly on every occasion. The money in the account we created for saving for the future was used up before I realized it, and Tom showed no signs of remorse. Eventually, I couldn't bear it anymore, and when I asked him to help with the chores or pointed out his sloppiness, he would get angry, making it increasingly difficult to handle. Although he never laid a hand on me, he started coming home less frequently and even started staying out all night, making me question the purpose of our cohabitation. Being a new graduate and having a changed environment, I had no one to consult with and felt exhausted from enduring everything alone. I considered breaking up several times, but I was afraid of getting emotionally upset and scolded, so time just passed without me saying anything. Then, when I fell ill and went to the hospital, I was informed that I was pregnant. Hosting a child, in any form, was irreplaceable for me, so I immediately reported it to Tom, but he flew into a rage and demanded an abortion. Tom was not prepared to share his life with me, and he probably saw me as nothing more than a convenient existence to take care of household chores and errands. When it came to raising a child, he was strongly opposed to being tied down by marriage, parenting, and family life, and demanded that I absolutely give it up. However, I couldn't give up my child, and with a strong desire to protect the child in my womb, I left the house I shared with Tom. I thought that the opportunity to meet the child in my belly was only once, and I couldn't bring myself to have an abortion. However, having moved to a big city for college, I had no reliable family nearby, and I couldn't afford to take a break from my new job. In my desperation, I headed to the apartment of Bob, whom I hadn't seen since graduating from college. Bob was visibly surprised by my sudden appearance, but he seemed to sense my distress and kindly let me into his home without saying a word. Then, after I organized my situation, he thought with me about what he could do to help. Bob still liked me and said he was very happy that I relied on him. I didn't want to take advantage of Bob's kindness, so I planned to give birth alone after staying with him for a while, but Bob didn't approve. Knowing that I was pregnant, he couldn't just stand by and do nothing, and he said he wanted me to consider living with him. Probably out of consideration so I wouldn't feel guilty. He might have had various conflicts that I didn't know about, but he swallowed them and chose to live with me and my unborn child. I ended up relying on Bob's kindness, so I promised to support our daily lives as much as possible, and Bob agreed to do so within his means. Although my pregnancy was a surprise to my coworkers and I was viewed with curiosity, I was able to resign amicably thanks to the understanding of some senior colleagues. Thinking about the future, Bob suggested that it would give our child more options if we unified our surnames to mine, so Bob entered my family as a son-in-law, and we submitted our marriage registration. He went out of his way to accommodate me, who was suddenly carrying a child, and accepted everything literally. Of course, both our parents opposed. Especially, I thought it was natural for Bob's parents to oppose. They probably didn't want their son to start a family with a woman carrying another man's child. It was easy to imagine, and I thought it was unavoidable. However, Bob rejected their objections with his characteristic sincerity, explaining that it was not a fleeting emotion. The powerful words "I want to believe in her and be close to her" that Bob said to his parents still resonate strongly in my heart. On the other hand, my parents thanked and apologized to Bob, emphasizing that they would always rely on him in times of need, as he supports the lives of me and our child. Being called the benefactor of their daughter, Bob seemed embarrassed, but he held my hand and declared, "I will make you happy." He took turns doing the housework when I was struggling with morning sickness during pregnancy and made sure to come home as early as possible and provide solid support after childbirth. He never misses recording the growth of Marie on video and dotes on her as if he were her biological father, for which I am very grateful. Now, it almost feels as if the time I spent with Tom never existed. However, the impact of this seemingly natural family image on me is not all positive. Every time I witness the magnitude of Bob's character, my chest tightens. It's probably punishment for not choosing Bob back then, but I can't shake off the lingering guilt. Every moment of happiness now seems so fragile, and there are times when I feel hopelessly anxious. I am terrified that revealing my secret may hurt the two of them. Bob is living with us knowing all the circumstances, so depending on Marie's reaction, it might cause trouble for Bob as well. One might think that if I'm so worried, I should just confess quickly, but I don't have the courage to do so. I disgust myself for saying that. Then one day, I noticed that Marie, who was out with a friend, had a somewhat stiff and awkward expression. Usually, after hanging out with her friends and returning home, she would talk endlessly about what they did and what they ate in a machine gun-like manner, but not this time. Concerned about the obvious discomfort, I asked Marie, "Is something wrong?" But she was reluctant to open up. I thought it might be the difficult age of adolescence or that she had a fight with a friend, but it didn't seem to be the case. Because I could tell that she kept looking at me, wanting to say something. I decided to wait until she was ready to talk and stopped prying. Maybe I just sensed the atmosphere and ran away. Finally, the time had come to reveal my secret. However, Marie seemed to have a hard time starting the conversation and, in the end, did not open her mouth. In the evening, when Bob came home, I started preparing dinner, and when it was ready, I called Marie. It is a daily routine for the three of us to gather around the dining table. In the middle of the usual scenery, Marie, as if she had made up her mind, finally opened her mouth. Today, I went to donate blood with my friend. Bob, who sensed Marie's tense expression, slightly changed his expression, which I noticed. I was told my blood type is A. I wonder why. I was greatly shaken by the fact that Marie had inadvertently discovered the secret in an unexpected way and stopped eating. Marie knows that both Bob and I have type O blood. Therefore, she also understands that it is almost impossible for a child with type A blood to be born from us as a couple. Taking that into account, Marie is asking us for an explanation. In fact, we had always told Marie that her blood type was O. We had submitted school documents as unknown blood type and hid documents like the Mother and Child Health Handbook, which have her real blood type written, where Marie wouldn't see them. We did this so that Marie wouldn't feel bad about having a different blood type from her parents, but now it was clear that it had backfired. However, when I tried to explain to Marie, I couldn't find the words, and I fell silent. Maybe sensing my distrust, Marie made a sad face and murmured, "Was I abandoned?" I wanted to deny it loudly, but contrary to my feelings, I couldn't speak, and my stiff body remained silent. Bob, knowing that I strongly wanted to explain myself, met my eyes but hesitated to speak. Marie seemed hurt by the fact that neither a rejection nor an affirmation came from us, and tears started to trickle down her cheeks. Then, without saying a word, she got up from her seat and locked herself in her room. I realize I've messed up, but it's too late now. Why do I always swallow my words at crucial moments? The dinner that Marie didn't touch is gradually getting cold. Bob and I finished our dinner in silence, then covered Marie's leftover food with plastic wrap and put it in the refrigerator. So she can eat it if she gets hungry later. Usually, the time would be filled with Marie's laughter and chatter, but today, it's eerily quiet. For the first time, I'm going to sleep in an unsettling silence, and I am acutely aware of the magnitude of the shock Marie experienced, causing tears to overflow. As I lie in my bed, the words Marie said earlier echo in my head. Her voice sounded profoundly sad. I want to hug her right now, but I'm afraid she might reject me, and I can't do it. In the end, I am a coward, most afraid of getting hurt myself. I can think of countless words to berate myself, but I still can't find the right words to say to Marie. Of course, there are many things I want to say. There's no way Marie is an abandoned child. She is my precious child, who I genuinely gave birth to, enduring all the pain. I remember the sensation of my belly gradually swelling and getting heavier, the pain of labor, the warmth of Bob's hand holding mine during childbirth, all too well. As Marie grew more active, there were many times I worried, but I can recall the scenery of the evening when we held hands and walked home, the essay she wrote to me as if it was yesterday. However, I'm tangled up with unnecessary thoughts, wondering if all of that was just my ego. Bob and I raised Marie with the utmost care, trying not to hurt her. I thought I had poured out my heart, filled with genuine love. And yet, I couldn't even deny Marie's words, let alone respond. If I could turn back time, I would immediately deny Marie's words. I want to hug her and tell her that she is definitely not an abandoned child, but my beloved, blood-related child. However, it might be too late. The fact that I couldn't deny it right away might mean that I felt guilty. Marie might not believe anything I say anymore. Thinking that, tears of regret start to overflow again. Then, there's a knock at the door of the room I'm in, and Bob quietly comes in. Asking is it okay now, Bob sits down on my bed, so I get out of the blanket and sit next to him. "It's been 17 years, a long time," Bob says warmly and kindly, rubbing my shoulder. However, I couldn't honestly accept those comforting words because of self-loathing, and I blurted out, "Yes, it's over, the game of playing family." I think I said those self-destructive words because I couldn't bear it otherwise. Then, with a tone I could never have imagined from the usually gentle Bob, he firmly denied, "That's not true." Sure, it might have been a twisted connection, but there wasn't a single lie in these 17 years, was there? Saying that, Bob tightly grabbed my hand and said, "Pull yourself together." I am aware that I conveniently relied on Bob when I found out I was pregnant with Marie. I have been living my daily life feeling sorry for Bob all along. Because I was weak, I had the habit of thinking negatively about everything, like I stole Bob's life or I am a bad woman taking advantage of his kindness. Probably, Bob also noticed my guilt. I was ashamed of myself, who could only cry, but Bob gently hugged me and said firmly, "We are a family." Those were the words I wanted to hear the most, and at the same time, I wanted to tell Marie as soon as possible. The next morning, the first thing I saw with my swollen, puffy eyes from crying was Marie, also with puffy, swollen eyes. Marie, noticing me sitting on the sofa, came straight over and sat down next to me. Then she laid her head on my shoulder and slowly opened her mouth. "I heard a little bit from Dad last night. I'm sorry, I jumped to conclusions." According to Marie, Bob emphasized that Marie and I are real mother and daughter, and he will always be on Marie's side no matter what. He told her to hear about the circumstances of her birth and the beginning of my relationship with Bob from me. Marie was happy to hear that our relationship wouldn't change. I thought she had grown into a strong person. Feeling disgusted with myself for still not having the courage and running away from my feelings, I took a deep breath and started talking slowly while watching Marie's reaction. About Marie's real father, and how Bob accepted Marie and me as a family when I found out I was pregnant. As I talked, tears that I thought I had shed enough of yesterday started to overflow again. Still, I wanted to tell Marie in my own words, so I kept talking. About the day Marie first rolled over, the day she ate solid food, and the day she started walking, all precious memories that I can never forget. And I apologized deeply for not being able to express it properly yesterday. I sincerely apologized for making Marie feel anxious. "Even if you hate me, I want to be your mother from now on." When I said, "I'm sorry for being selfish," Marie seemed to think for a while and then fell silent. Then, after a little while, she said, "Oh. The blood type horoscope, everything was different," and laughed. "I was anxious because you didn't deny it right away, but you tend to clam up when you're flustered, don't you?" I realized that when I talked to Dad. She said it with a bit of teasing. Marie's eyes were filled with a gentle warmth, emitting a glow that made me feel truly relieved. I was moved by Marie's strong words and shed new tears, mumbling like a child, "Please forgive such a mother." Marie patted my shoulder and said, "My feelings for my family will never change. Dad, Mom," and then she looked at Bob, who had come into the living room at some point, and said brightly with tearful eyes. I felt the atmosphere brighten up completely from yesterday and finally felt relieved. I shed tears again, not knowing how many times it had been, hugged Marie, and reached out to Bob, and we all hugged each other, expressing our feelings of being a family together. We held each other tightly, promising not to let go, but had to separate once when Marie said, "I'll make breakfast." Once we calmed down, it felt a bit embarrassing, but it also felt refreshing, like our family could restart. All thanks to Bob, who cleared up the misunderstandings when I couldn't decide, and to Marie, who grew up so well. I decided then and there to become a person who wouldn't be a disgrace to these two. After all, I was able to meet such a wonderful family. Marie's breakfast included the soup that tasted exactly like the one I always make. While the side dish was Marie's original stir-fried vegetables, the soup was faithfully recreated from what I taught her. Even in such moments, I find Marie, who can stir my emotions, truly adorable. Embarrassed, Marie said, "It tastes like Mom's," and smiled as she sipped the miso soup. Bob also smiled gently and praised Marie, saying, "You did a great job." Thus, our daily routine was maintained, and we could once again gather around a dining table full of smiles and conversations. Later, as if suddenly recalling something, Marie said, I thought Dad was just kind, but he can be reliable too, huh? Confused, Bob tilted his head, and Marie explained, I mean, you quickly stepped up to help Mom when she was in trouble, right? Wow, that's so cool. She smiled happily, adding that it's not something everyone could do. I, too, was greatly helped by Bob at that time. Even now, Bob helps me a lot, and I'm truly grateful to have someone like him around. Thank you, I said, expressing my gratitude that had been building up for years. Tears welling up in his eyes, Bob laughed and said, Stop it. Later, thanks to Marie's strong desire, we had a small wedding ceremony with only a photo shoot. At our home, there's a photo of me in a bridal gown, Bob in a suit, and Marie in a mini dress. It's an irreplaceable treasure that tells the story of our family. Listen, you can hear it, right? Today's episode from Marie is about her recent strength training. It seems she aims to tone up before summer ends. Maybe I should try it with Marie.